rainy season here, so like the rainy season just started, so it's overcast all day, every day. But like it's like the sky is clear and like the buildings are like glowing orange and red. Oh, it's amazing. I wish you could see it. Too bad.
And you haven't slept either. Just to be clear,
Huh?
did you sleep last night, or you're still up? You said.
No, you know what? This is what happened. So I thought we were doing this yesterday morning. So I adjusted my sleep schedule and I woke up at 4 a.m. and I saw her email and I was like, oh. So then I stayed up till like 11.
Oh no.
I was like, yeah, I'll survive. I'll take a nap. I'm a napper anyway.
I'm sorry. That is rough because
It's
no matter where I go in the world, I keep a U.S. schedule. So whenever I'm in Asia, I remember last time I was in Bangkok and I was up all night and asleep all day, and that does not end well. So, Tiffany, are we having some issues here with? Oh no. Oh wait, it is. I'm sorry. I was looking at the thing on YouTube, which is confusing when you look at it there, and it was playing an ad, as it turns out, rather than whatever else. So.
Oh yeah, because I turned the ads on Sunday because I felt like a bad human being like, "Hey, we're having virtual brunch," when there's like actual important things happening in the world. Yeah. So we turned the ad. It's like I sort of anything. So I turned the ads on, and we put all of the proceeds we sent to the Loveland Foundation, and apparently the ads are still on. So we'll just do that again. So sorry, guys. Thank you for watching the ads. For those of you who don't have YouTube Premium, which you should have YouTube Premium because Amex will pay you for it with the streaming credits. So you should do that. There's my plug for I don't even know what. Eric is like, what?
I don't know what's happening. I don't know.
So you're not at all into, because
so let's do introductions. So this is Erick Prince from the Minority Nomad. I first met Eric at some travel conference. I don't remember which one.
FTU Chicago 2017.
Well, look at you. Do you have a good memory, or did you just like go through and like, why is this girl have my?
You and Stefan introduced us.
Yes. Yeah. And so that was, that event was sort of a mess, but it was really fun meeting. Ben, you missed that one. It was maybe a good choice. But I had such a great time talking with you, and then interacting with you since at things like TravelCon and stuff. I love the stories that you tell because you live in Bangkok, which is, I think, something that people are super interested in because you're actually doing the thing in terms of sort of uprooted, and you're an amazing photographer.
Oh, thank you.
And you know that. You don't have to be like false modest about.
Oh, no. My work's not for everybody. I appreciate the love.
And then I love that you're just super gracious with your audience, which I enjoy. Like it's not like we're rude, but you are constantly explaining things in a way that's like not pretentious and not preachy. It just even things like, here's how you fill out your customs form if you're coming into Thailand or whatever. And I just think that's so nice and valuable.
I think it's, for me, I think it's a little different for me than most travel journalists or bloggers because I'm a person of color. I'm Black, and a lot of people.
No.
37 years of it. And, a lot of my audience are people who've never traveled before, truly have no connection to the world. A lot of our family who have traveled tend to have been in military service. And if that wasn't the case, it wasn't likely that you had somebody in your family who had traveled. So, these things are new to a lot of people in my community, the custom forms and visas and scanners now all these days and happen to wear a mask. All this stuff is new to my community. So even, before I started traveling, I felt it was important for me to kind of relay my experience back to my community the best way I can. I just tend to be a happy person. So I guess that comes across on video.
That is a good trait. So how did you get into travel to begin with, and then eventually living in Bangkok? How did that all come about?
Well, so I started in the military. I was in the military for 10 and a half years, and they sent me around the world. I joined January 2001, so right before the war kicked off. and I was on the road most of the time after that. So fast forward 10.5 years, I went back to the University of Texas to finish up my degree, and ended up starting a small nonprofit foundation for low-income kids to teach them about photography and travel. Because those were the two things that saved me. I was one bad decision away from being in prison, and it's really interesting seeing what's going on right now because even though a lot of people, feel like they're getting a behind the curtain lens, like for us, this has been normal. Police brutality, marginalization. I mean, this is just like for me, it's really interesting seeing what's happening right now because I don't know how to feel yet. I'm still processing it because I'm like, none of this is new. Absolutely nothing is new or surprising to us. So, for me, the things that help me get out of the inner city to get out of that. Oh, did you say something, Tiffany? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to. Can you turn your mic up just a smidgen? People are saying it's a little hard. Yeah.
Let's pretend I know how to do that.
Well, that's okay. We subtitle all of our live streams, like how not to live stream. But
okay. Yeah, sorry guys, I have no idea how to.
That's actually better. So maybe
you're good.
Oh, that's just me projecting more.
Yeah. So maybe just project a little bit more. It might just be because I have my head
here.
Is there something plugged in, or you're talking directly into your laptop?
No, it's plugged in. My microphone is right here next to.
You want to take out the microphone and see, or does it have?
No, then we couldn't hear him at all. I think it's just. It's just maybe.
I'll
pretend it's not 5:30 in the morning. But you got stuff to say.
Gotta wake up. So basically, after I finished my time in the military, I went back to the University of Texas, and while I was there, I started a nonprofit foundation, which really was designed to help inner city kids learn about travel and photography, the two things that helped me get out of the inner city. While I do love where I came up, I grew up in East Cleveland, Ohio. It's a very toxic environment, to say the least. So when I started the foundation, there was just no funding. Everybody kept telling me no. And a few people were very candid with me. Basically, they said that Black people don't travel. Even Black people were saying Black people don't travel. Back then, that was true. This is 2008, 2009. Statistically speaking, that was true then. And I tend to be kind of not arrogant, but confident in myself. So I said I'll do it myself. So I ended up getting a job with the Department of Motor Vehicles on contract for 9 months. I saved $19,000 and bought a one-way ticket to London, and I've been going ever since. That was 2012, beginning of 2012. So that's it. That's really the genesis of the Minority Nomad story. Minority Nomad was actually started just to show people me traveling. It was not designed to be what it is now.
That's awesome. So how many countries, because you're trying to visit every country in the world?
I'm at 95 now, but I'm going way slower now. I wanted to be the first African-American to do it, but Jessica and another lady did it already. They both did it last year. So now I'm kind of taking my foot off the gas.
Did they really? I mean, I don't know either. Did they really do it, or are they more the I touched it?
See, Tiffany, that's controversial. Let me just say,
I like to be. It's a less serious thing to be controversial about.
It's interesting. It's a different. It's a very real conversation. And when people found out that they had done it, like Jessica, she was pushing it was Catch Me If You Can. She was that was her thing. That's all she did was try to go to every country in the world. For me, I just moved differently. I traveled differently. Everything. I've never asked anybody for $1. I've never asked my audience for anything. I've never sold anything. My entire journey has been 100% off my dime. And I have a rule. I'll spend at least 72 hours in a country unless it's Andorra, which I did spend. I spent 4 days in Andorra, by the way. But Luxembourg.
I have to remember that. We got to go back to that in a bit.
I'm I don't think I got to spend 72 hours in these countries. But most countries, I believe you have to spend at least 72 hours in it to say I actually traveled to this country, because I believe you get a feel for the people, the culture, the vibe after about 3 days.
I actually love hearing you say that, because one of the things with our audience is we are sometimes very fast travelers.
Yeah.
And, it's like, okay, with the way that when you're using miles and points, you can add on another country for like no cost. And it's like, well, why not spend 48, 72 hours someplace? And Ben and I always say, like, that's a great amount of time to get a vibe for a place and see if you want to come back. Yeah. But other people are like 72 hours, you didn't even see anything, That's even time to get food poisoning and get better or whatever.
That's the thing about travel. You have to do what you want to do. You have to stop worrying about what other people are saying and what you saw, what you didn't see, the FOMO of it. I'm like, look, man, if my time is my currency. And if I only have 72 hours, that's it. But I think that's a valid pushback only when somebody's presenting themselves as an authority. Like if I said, let me think of a short country. Oh, Malta. Malta is a place that I was only in Malta for 4 days. I would never say I know Malta. Like I was only there for 4 days, but I know Bangkok. I know Italy. Right. I know Spain. So I think that's very important when we're absorbing information from people. Like, what's your authority on this? Like, what's really your authority? Right. But we can be travel shaming people,
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Ben.
No, so I respect that you take your time because it's so different than the travel style so many of us have. And that's great. So you said you started your journey in London, and then like how many places have you spent, let's say a month or more, would you say?
Oh, a lot. That's often. I would say it would be more that I spend a couple weeks. A month is a little long. There are quite a few places I'll spend a month. I only want to list them. I would say easily 30 to 40 countries I've spent at least a month in over the years.
That's awesome.
But I would say 2 weeks. Most countries I'll spend 2 weeks in. Not even more than the 72-hour rule. Most I'll try to spend about a week and a half, give or take.
Awesome. Sorry, Tiffany, I cut you off. So please, whatever.
That's fine. I was just going to keep the conversation bouncing, and now I forgot what I was going to ask or say or whatever. So, so Eric, I don't know if you know this yet, but Mike is asking, like, have you tried visiting like Somalia, South Sudan? Have you started getting into those countries that are just not so friendly to visit?
Exactly. The problem with the African continent, and things have changed a lot. I was supposed to finish up South America this year. So I was going to finish South America this end of this year, and 2021, I was going to focus on Africa. So I was going to do 30 countries next year in Africa. But then coronavirus showed up, and that changed everything. So no, the answer is no. And the reason I don't go to Africa more is because it's just difficult. It's very difficult, and it's a bit expensive still. So hopefully things change after this, but I might have to just bite the bullet and wait till 2020, like 2022, 2023 to finish up Africa.
And how long have you been in Bangkok?
I've lived here 5 years, but I'm rarely here. Like my friends were saying they're tired of seeing me because they never see me this much. I'm usually in Bangkok maybe 7-8 weeks, and then I'm on the road for about the same amount of time, and then back and forth. I'm never in Bangkok more than 2 months. It's very rare.
So can I then do you rent a place there, or do you get a different place, a different Airbnb or something every time you go?
I used to own. I recently sold, and now I rent. Yeah.
And the same place consistently, even when you're gone, or you just rent something each time?
Well, okay. I had my place for 4 years, and now I'm renting a place in the same building, like 2 floors out.
So I was watching a video of yours where you were talking about Bangkok on your site, and like as a visitor, it's such a different experience. I mean, I think that's true everywhere, but it's interesting you said that Bangkok is not really so much a city for tourists in a traditional sense, but can you talk a little about that? Because I've been to Bangkok so many times, but it was for like 2 or 3 days, because for me, it's almost a stopover going somewhere else. So I'd be fascinated by the other side of that other than.
Yeah, and it's great. It's a great question, because I'm actually working on a expats guide to Bangkok. Nobody is really creating authentic local guides to Bangkok for expats. A lot for locals, a lot for Thais, a lot for Thai language speakers, but nothing specifically for expat, somebody who doesn't speak the language, who just moved here, has a middle-class job, and just wants to know the city, or a tourist who wants to come here for 2 weeks and really immerse in the city. Bangkok can only be compared to Tokyo, London, New York City. There's no place like those are the closest comparisons.
Right. It's just the size at some point, right?
It's insane. The size, it's overwhelming. And I think the difference between Bangkok when you compare it to, say, New York City and a London, those are places we know, or even a Paris. Like, even if we've never been to Paris, we know Paris. Bangkok's not like that. Bangkok is one of the most different places that you could be from the UK, from the US, from Canada. So when you come here, you get overwhelmed, and it's easy to just do 2 days, go to the temple, shop, and leave.
It's hot.
It's not that hot. Jeez. But again, I lived in Texas before I came out here, so like it's more
right. But I think that's actually like one of the things with other places I've lived, like. And I think it's true with Bangkok. Like, if you don't get with the like local time schedule, you don't have as nice of a time, especially when you're there in Southeast Asia. If it's daytime, people are, it's air conditioned, it's inside, like so much happens at night, which is outside of like typical tourist hours, or, everyone with a dad thinks they need to be up and in line queuing for something at 8 a.m., which just doesn't work in Bangkok.
Exactly. That's a really good point, because everywhere in Bangkok is air conditioned, everywhere you go. And the only things that you're really going to be doing during the daytime here, you're either at the mall shopping or you're at the temples. Other than that, everything else is not at night. Like, everything really worth doing is at night. The red light districts are at night. The rooftop bars are at night. The street markets are at night. Like the train markets are at night. The best parts of this city all are at night. And a lot of times people get on that exact schedule. You got to be up at the temple or the attraction by 10 a.m. You're out in the sun all day. You're eating mango sticky rice. And by 9 o'clock, you're tired. So you're going to bed, you try to do it again. And you missed everything about the city. I always tell people, Bangkok is 2 cities. From 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. is one city. From 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. is an entirely different city. It's 2 entirely different experiences. And I think you really need a local guide to like show you this city, which is why I'm doing the guide.
Yeah. So speaking of, and this is one of the things that I think we both thought was really different. What's the environment like in Bangkok during COVID?
Awesome.
Because we saw, like you did on Instagram a couple weeks ago when you went to the mall, which is the mall attached to the Park Hyatt, which is, so we recognized it. And we were like, oh, we've been there. Like, I bought Ben a keyboard there. Yeah, we were there. He had the flu and the computer died.
Good time.
Honestly, I have been so impressed. And some people are accusing me of like nepotism. Like, oh, it's just because you're in Thailand and you like it. I'm like, look, I am the first person to be critical of a shoddy government. The way the government has handled coronavirus in Thailand should be the model for most countries. It is fantastic. They have done an excellent job at protecting people. Not only that, there's a culture here. It's a cultural difference that I think a lot of people in the West don't understand. Here, it's all about the community and the family. Everybody's protection, everybody's safety is of primary concern. So you wear a mask not for yourself, but you wear it for other people, so you don't get other people sick here. So when you ask people to wear a mask, it's not even a question. It's not even an argument or a conversation to be had. When you ask people to social distance, it's not a problem here. There's been no issues with that.
You're not like, people aren't storming the State House or getting kicked out of Costco.
Well, there have been a couple instances where people are up, like there have been some instances, but those have been minor, where there was a lady who was really upset about, she couldn't get her medicine. And then there was one guy who was mentally ill who tried to climb the prime minister's residence, but those were just isolated incidents, not the norm. Overall,
right, you can count them on one hand.
Yeah, easily. But overall, it has been start to now. We just entered the 4th of 5 phases where basically everything's open now except for nightlife and go-go bars. Yeah. Like go-go bars and
it's very specific. They're like, and we may not ever open them back up. We'll see.
It's still Bangkok. Hold on.
So that raises the question: is the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Bangkok completely closed, or what else does one do other than restaurants? Because I just, as a tourist, you only know the bars and stuff.
Well, the markets are open. And it's interesting. I know back in the U.S. and in the U.K., people were really legit on quarantine. Like you couldn't go anywhere. That never happened in Thailand. There was never any of that. All they had was a late night quarantine because teenagers were getting drunk and having parties. So the quarantine started at 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. Now it's 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. And then the next one is all gone. That's the only time we couldn't be out. But overall, 6 p.m., ain't nobody doing nothing. It really ain't like we'll meet up like now since like the restaurants can like you have alcohol and stuff now. We meet up with friends and we catch up because we haven't seen each other for 2 months. But other than that, not much. You might go to a market or something, but you don't want to be caught out after curfew because they don't mess around. Like they do not play when it comes to curfew here.
So talking about the restaurants and stuff, like what is the reopening and sort of that distancing looking like? Because in the US, it's completely disjointed. It's very different. Like Ben went out to a restaurant last week, and in Spokane, where I am in Eastern Washington State, we don't even have restaurants open that you can sit at yet. And his experience is very different than like what I've seen on your Instagram in terms of the protocols. And do you want to talk about that? Just like what Thailand's doing?
It's slightly. I mean, it's relative. It's pretty uniform for the most part. I see a lot of vendors kind of skirting the rules a little bit, and some people are really. But more restaurants are going above and beyond what's required. They're doing extra on top of extra safety just cause. Like we went to lunch yesterday, and they have these plexiglass partitions on a table for 2 people, so you can sit at the table with each other, but there's plexiglass in between you. But some restaurants, there's no plexiglass, but the tables are separated. They're spread apart. They're 6 feet apart. That's the only real separation when it comes to restaurants. And you're not allowed to consume alcohol on the premises yet, which is going to be changing in a couple of weeks. But I'm not sure. A lot of us are like, but why? But all right, no other question. All right, I guess.
So, I mean, it seems if everything's going pretty well, I mean, it sounds like things are, obviously there's some restrictions, but people are respectful in Thailand, which is not consistently necessarily the case here. So how is it to watch, I guess, in the news while being disconnected, but still being American, everything that's going on now between, coronavirus, Black Lives Matter, everything?
I don't watch the news. That's how I stay sane. The interesting thing, one of the first things you start to notice when you live outside of the US or the UK is that the rest of the world really doesn't care that much about our news. For me to see news from the US in Thailand and Bangkok, I have to look for it. I actually have to go out of my way to find it. I remember being in the US, you go into the dentist's office or you go into Starbucks or wherever, if it's a TV, they're going to turn on CNN or Fox News, whatever their affiliation is. Here, no, you'll see a movie. You'll see Hollywood movies playing anywhere, soap opera. So for me, I've been lucky enough to be a bit disconnected. However, I'm still American, and I'm watching the coronavirus coverage, and I'm like, I see why people are afraid. Just the way it's being covered is terrifying. But then I look at, I really had to unfollow a lot of people, not unfollow, but mute a lot of people on social media because of the Black Lives Matter stuff, because it's such a complicated topic that people are trying to make simple that it's frustrating me. Like I'm getting anxious and upset about it, even though I'm not even home right now. I'm not at the protests or seeing these things. And I'm like, guys, it's out of control. I can imagine what you guys are dealing with there. So yeah, it's frustrating and liberating, if that makes any sense at all.
Makes perfect sense. We're unfortunately in a very bad news bubble often in the U.S. and that.
Am I coming through okay now? I'm trying to speak louder.
It's fine.
It's better than it was. It's a little quieter. I think we're loud apparently, but that's okay. So 95 countries, you said?
Yes, I've been to 95 countries so far.
I'm curious to compare here. So because I'm 98 or something. I have to double check my list because I haven't been anywhere in a while, so I forgot everything I think at this point. But weirdest country in your opinion, or most unusual, or most surprising, interesting, whatever you'd like to call it. What tops your list there?
You know what? I would say Uzbekistan was interesting. I want to go back to Uzbekistan because I would say of my 95 countries, about 35 to 40 of those were when I was a soldier, when I was in the military. So my experience was different. Uzbekistan was interesting because everybody said I looked like Mike Tyson. And I was like, I look nothing like Mike Tyson. But for them, you got to remember, this is 2002, 2003, shortly after the Mike Tyson phenomenon. And he was the only black guy a lot of people knew. So when you have, bigger, and I was actually bigger than I am now as far as muscle, big black guys walking through Karshi-Kanabad or Samarkand, Uzbekistan, the first thing that clicks, it makes sense, is Mike Tyson. That was interesting. A surprising country that is one of my top 5 countries now is Romania. I was shocked about how much I loved Romania the first time. Like now, like my best friend's Romanian. I'm actually a Romanian godfather. Like my godson's Romanian.
Oh, that's fun.
So I actually go to Romania twice a year, every year if I can make it.
That's cool. Tiffany and I were it was Romania, right?
Yes. Ben is such a trooper. I was like, here, we're like, buy these tickets. Like, we're flying into this airport and we're leaving from this airport. And he's like, he drove the whole way. What country were we in? Do you even know or care?
My memory is so bad to begin with in the past few months of being inside. I've just completely, if you asked me to name 10 countries, I probably couldn't do it. But we loved Romania as well. It was beautiful. It was lovely. And I think everything is even lovelier in retrospect now when you can't really go anywhere or haven't been able to. I'm like, even my worst trips, that was not my worst trip for the record, Tiffany. I'm like,
right, but all those hotels sound amazing.
the hotel situation was interesting, but that's Romania was.
I pushed Ben out of his comfort zone. That's what we do here.
That's the best.
Well, I appreciated the amount of planning you did and the fact that I would never have come up with this creative road trip. I would have just been discouraged and stopped long before I got to that.
Country. It really is it is. I'm baffled that more people don't go to Romania. It's so shocking to me that place hasn't been overrun by tourists yet. It's an amazing place.
We're on the same page here, right? With one of the lovelier places in Europe, I think that we've done. That's and so I did Uzbekistan a couple of years ago, and then I went nearby to Tajikistan. So along those lines, with the Mike Tyson comparison, like for example, when I go some places, especially if it's a country that doesn't have a lot of tourists. As a white guy, I get a lot of, people are just like, what the heck? Do you get more?
Why are you here?
Sorry?
Like, yes, why are you here?
Like, does that happen, unfortunately?
I get more excitement. I get a lot of excitement. And I'm a photographer. That's my job. I don't know if I ever said that, but my job, I'm a travel photographer. That's my job, travel journalist. So it's my favorite icebreaker is I'm black. It makes life so much easier as a photographer because people just stare at you and they break the ice for you. They want to take pictures with you. So it's like, okay, let me take a picture of you. I'll take a picture with you. And it's like everybody just happy because, I just walk around. Guys, I'm telling you, this is me all the time. Like I am happy to be alive. I was in the military 10 and a half years. I feel lucky to have made it out of that war. So it's like, everywhere I go is new and excitement and fresh and loud and fun. And people respond to that. So one of the greatest lessons I've learned about travel is people everywhere in the world are simple, very easy. Like we overcomplicate things. People just want to be happy. They want to take care of their families. They want to have fun. It's all the same thing. So for me, I like to be happy. I want to take care of my family. I want to have fun. So just showing up at some random bar, taking shots with locals, easy for me. It's normal. It's a Tuesday for me. And I've been blessed to be in situations where it always works out. I always make great friends. I end up speaking the local language after a couple of shots, so that's helpful. I'm fluent now.
Goes back to that innate confidence.
Yeah, well, it's locals. This is why I get frustrated when I hear people say Chinese people are this, or white people are this, or Romanians are this, or Germans are this. It's like that's bullshit. It was like you can't squeeze people down, humanity down into these little boxes. And even when people don't fit in those boxes, you go out of your way to find a way to put them in that. And it's like people are diverse, people are compassionate, some people are assholes, but that's what makes life and travel so much fun, is that you don't know what you're going to run into. So, to your original question, man, I do get that shock value. Like, what is this? Like, what is going on? And a lot of times I'm told I'm the first Black person they've actually met. Mm-hmm. And I carry that sense of responsibility with me because I understand what the global media representation is of Black men. If I can just show people, like most African Americans, most people are like me, happy, positive, honest, hardworking people just like them, then when somebody says some off the wall shit, like all Black people are criminals, you're like, no, I met a Black guy. That's wrong. My experience in real life with a Black person is this. And I know a lot of people don't move that way, but I do. That's how I choose to engage the world, and that's my way of trying to change things.
Good for you. That's the right attitude.
I love that.
I love that. Yeah, that's.
Can we talk more about your photography? Because you're an amazing photographer. Did you just start as being an amazing photographer? Like, how'd you get into it? What would you say for people who are getting started? Like 14 questions, just run with it.
Started winning an award, at the age of 2. I started photography totally by accident. I just didn't want to get expelled from school. So I was lucky. It was crazy. I shouldn't have got seriously. When I say I shouldn't have made it out of high school, I shouldn't have made it out of high school. I went to East Cleveland City Schools. Anybody who's familiar with the school system in Cleveland, they know that it's probably one of the worst school districts in the country. I mean, it's really, really bad. But if you were intelligent, if you were smart, you just destroyed it. It was so easy that it was laughably easy, high school for me. And I wasn't the only one. It was a lot of us that way. They just they didn't know what to do with us. So we didn't go to school. We cut classes, we hung out, we stayed in band room or choir. We just kicked it the whole time. I want to say my end of my sophomore year, they introduced a truancy law, which is part of the school to prison pipeline that a lot of people talk about. So just Google school to prison pipeline. I don't have time.
You're like, it's now 6 a.m. and it's too early for that still.
It's ugly. But they were trying to get as many of us locked up as possible. And luckily, we had an assistant principal named Brian Wasco. Mr. Wasco was a good friend of my grandfather's growing up in Cleveland. So he gave me a choice. He said, you could join a vocational program or you can get expelled. Of course, I'm going to join a vocational program. And I tried to join cosmetology because that's where all the pretty girls were. But it was already full. So I couldn't get into cosmetology. Then I wanted to go to culinary arts because I can cook. It was already full. And then I went to commercial arts.
So other people had this same thought process, right?
Yeah,
and they went alphabetically and like, Prince, sorry, full.
Where the ladies at? So I ended up going to commercial arts, and I am a terrible artist. And Irene Schinkel was her name. She realized early on that I couldn't draw, I couldn't sculpt, I couldn't paint, I couldn't do anything. So she gave me an old Nikon camera with one roll of film and sent me out to go take pictures. And back then, 32, 34. And then I came back And then she took me into the dark room and taught me how to develop film. And everything was just overexposed, out of frame. It was just terrible. But she told me why things were, wait, okay, this is really, really bright. That's called overexposure. And this is what exposure is. So that's how I learned photography, in the dark room, by making mistakes. So the next day she gave me another roll. And I did that for 6, 7, 8 months for that whole year. And eventually I became a school photographer. Fast forward. That's how I learned.
Fast forwarding. That's an incredibly, like, so for the Gen Z people who are watching, that's an incredibly expensive vocational program, because film was not cheap in like 1998.
I started my first business, my first professional photography business, using the school's everything. I used their camera, their film, and their dark room. So it was saying this. We're here now. What I was doing,
we're here now. Maybe send them $100 or something. But
of Sears and May Company, where you go take your family to go and like take no. So I just saw somebody say Cleveland, Texas. No, Cleveland, Ohio. I am from Cleveland, Ohio. I was stationed in Texas and became a Texas resident when I joined the military. So that's that. I totally forgot there's a Cleveland, Texas. So what I would do was I would underbid the department stores for family portraits. So the family stores, they would be charging $100, $150. I charge $20, $25. And be like, yo, I'll come to your house and do it. You ain't even got to drive. So I would use the school equipment, and then I would go back, develop them. And the school was like, okay. So it was all good. So fast forward, photography has always been a part of my life since I was 14? I was 14, so about 23 years now.
That's awesome. And now, like, in addition to everything else that you do, you still have your foundation doing photography. And you sometimes do photography courses as well, or I see that you're doing like a little...
I mainly teach at conferences or when requested. But again, coronavirus has killed everything. I was supposed to be doing 4 seminars this year, and I was going to start doing photography trips. But it seems like everything's going to have to wait until next year. I'm really focusing my future work on photography and teaching.
That's awesome.
I love that.
So are some of your trips then, or your, I guess, countries you go to, motivated by a desire to take pictures there, or is it a coincidence? Or
no, not at all. So I kind of keep my photography and my travel planning separate for that reason, because I would constantly be going back to India. I would go to India every single trip if it was.
Would you say, is that your favorite country you photographed?
India is easily the best photography destination on the planet Earth. It is fantastic. It's oh my goodness. I cannot get over how amazing India is. And every time I go, I find something new to fall in love with. But to your original question, honestly, I just look for new stories to tell. Like, the reason I ended up in Romania was I wanted to document the Roma Gypsy community. And that was so much fun. It was such a fun experience. I ended up going back to Malaysia because I wanted to go check out this Thaipusam festival. I ended up going to India because I was invited to go to the Kumbh Mela, which is the largest gathering of humans in history of our existence. I look for stories to tell. If somebody tells me there's a story in a country that I've never been to, that's a win-win for me. I just search for stories because I think that's lost now. Like, we travel for FOMO now. We travel to check things off of a list that somebody else made. Like, I travel to find new stories to tell, because that's the one thing we have. That's the last unique thing that we have left, is a story to tell. Everybody can take a beautiful picture of the Eiffel Tower. How many of those do we need to see? But to tell the story of the African immigrant community around Gare du Nord in Paris, that's a unique story to tell. So I think that's what we should be pushing for in travel, is to find and experience these different opportunities and different views on life to really grow. I'm frustrated by what I'm seeing in travel journalism, travel blogging, because it's the same story over and over. So I try to show my audience something as different as I possibly can.
Good for you. That's a good approach.
I love that.
Good for us, and good for all of us, man.
So how do you go about, because it sounds like a lot of the pictures you take are also of people or communities. It's not just destination. How do you go about approaching that? Because, for example, the extent of travel reviewing I do is of airplanes. And like for me, the trickiest part of that in hotels is taking pictures without people in them. And clearly in a lot of your pictures, the people are the focus. So how do you approach that? Do you ask them, or how does that come go?
I'd say most of the time I do not ask. I have some ethical, my ethical code, and it's different for every photographer. I will never take pictures of people who have an expectation of privacy. So, for example, here in Bangkok, if you walk down the side streets, you can see right into people's homes. It's just normal that the front of people's homes is just open. It's the same in Malaysia as well, Indonesia. I would never take that photo or video. If somebody is in distress, like if somebody's homeless or like disabled on the street, I would never take that photo. But if somebody is in the middle of a town square reading a book, I'll take that photo. So I tend to, if they're in a public space, then it's fair game. When it comes to children, I'll take a picture of children, but I'll never sell a picture of children. Or if I'm taking a picture of children, I'll go to the parents and I'll give the parents the picture, because now if you have a smartphone, I can directly transfer from my camera to somebody's phone, and now they have a beautiful picture of their children. Or I'll get the email and I'll email that picture to them.
That's sweet.
Yeah. So I think it's just bridging that gap. I think when you step back and you just look at how would I want this, that, like me, I've had my picture randomly taken by people I didn't even know a lot over the years.
Right.
And for me, I was like, oh man, I wish I had that picture. Like there have been a couple of times I saw my picture somewhere at an event. I'm like, oh man, I want a copy of that. And like, if I can give that to somebody else, I travel to places where a lot of people don't have like the skill set or the gear that I have. So I can likely take a better picture than their phone can. So now they have a beautiful picture of their, 7-year-old kid playing in a fountain in Barcelona,
Okay. Makes a lot of sense. That's a good answer. All your answers are very good and thought out and very
good questions, man.
ethical and good.
I know we're asking a lot of questions. Typically we do a little bit more just chilling, but
I love the fact you're traveling.
You have so much to say. Yeah.
Because we are so, at least on the blogging site, insulated with miles and points and airlines and hotels, and like obviously the reason hopefully we're all earning miles and points is to be able to travel and see destinations, but it's cool to talk to somebody who's on the completely opposite. Like you don't do miles and points, you do just the travel part, which is awesome.
I realized I wasn't a miles and points guy when I met Tiffany. Like we were in the green room.
I do sometimes have that effect on people. They're like, F that.
You remember that was when they started to devalue everything. That was when like they were doing all the Marriott and SVG, all the mergers and stuff.
So you know some stuff about miles and points. You know the important stuff.
I got the Chase Sapphire card. I get my miles. But it was I've been platinum on a few airlines. But it was I know the miles thing, but I'm not loyal. I'm a very disloyal traveler. So like for me, I've never found it like worth it to kind of stay. I'm a one world guy. So I go out of my way. I make sure I try to get 50,000 miles on one world every year just to kind of, my mom.
You are a points and status person. You got it.
Yeah, I sneak in somewhere here and there. But the funny thing,
you at least got your feet in the pond there.
Yeah, you guys snuck me in. It was I want to say it was Gary Arndt who really got on me about not doing more points and miles. But man, yeah,
which is ironic.
I'm not loyal enough to you guys. You guys are in another league.
Well, it's also different. Like some of this logistics are just sort of a pain in the ass if you live abroad too. Some of the like dealing, changing out your credit cards or just dealing with mail, or like when I used to live overseas, it was a huge hassle. It was like, well, I'm going to get all the credit cards I'm going to need before I go because this is it for the next year.
I've been with Chase forever too. Like Chase, I've been with them for a long time. I probably should check on my miles. I haven't checked them in a while, but yeah, I've been with Chase. Man,
you're not tracking them every day and checking your balance.
No, I'm like,
no, he doesn't need that tracker I made. Yeah, he's
Do 5 times a day.
living a much better life. No, but it is going back to what Ben was saying. Like, it's really fun to talk to somebody on the travel side who is also outside of the mold of a lot of what we see from travel bloggers.
That is literally what I was about to say, because it's like, you are a very good photographer and you are a travel blogger, which for most people means just the pictures of the big breakfasts in the pool, floating pool in the Maldives at the hotel. So you're taking like a very...
Exactly. And like us, you fund your own stuff. So it's a little bit different of an experience that we're all having than the people who are on the junkets all the time.
It's a difficult thing for me professionally doing this. I am blessed that I'm very good with money because I was in business long before I was a travel blogger. This is like just a thing that ended up happening. And I've never understood the concept of having somebody else fund my travels. It's not even really a thing to me. And the way that I see so many travel bloggers move is so inauthentic. It's so fake to me. And it's so abusive. And it's so destructive to not only their audiences, but local communities as well. The good thing about COVID-19 and coronavirus, it is a hard reset. It's a Control-Alt-Delete on travel. And now we have an opportunity to combat things like over-tourism, like exploitation. It's like it's so many things. Just your carbon footprint by itself, it gives us an opportunity to rethink what we're actually doing. When I used to hate going to Europe in the summertime. Like, the crowds were unbearable. Just unbearable at so many amazing destinations in Europe. And hopefully now that changes a bit. I'm talking, look, you don't all have to go to Barcelona. There's so many amazing. Go to Cordoba, go to Seville, Malaga. There's so many amazing places that aren't on that same old itinerary you paid for. And hopefully travel bloggers will wake up and stop doing the same thing to backpackers, and I look at most travel bloggers at least start as backpackers, but they do the same thing. I'm going to go to Koh Phi Phi, and then I'm going to go to the Penang, and I'm going to go to the Philippines. I'm going to do some drone shots in Bali, and I'm going to go back, and I'm going to hope I get paid. I'm like, do something different, please. It's like, we have so much power now, and we abuse it and we waste it. So that's my soapbox. Sorry.
No, I love it.
Beautifully said.
John's asked a couple of times, what's sort of the local sense on the ground of Thailand and reopening to tourism?
Oh, that was it's being discussed right now. So they're going to go with the openings are likely going to start in August. They just started repatriation flights back yesterday for people on work permits and visas, but they're leaning towards August. But it's not going to be for everybody. They're going to choose what countries they're going to let people in. It's got a travel
and the USA will obviously be at the top of that list because...
I'm sorry. We're screwed.
No, it's okay. We swear it on this.
We are screwed in the US. But what they're doing is they're creating these travel bubbles. Like New Zealand is in the travel bubble. I believe South Korea is. I believe Vietnam also. But so they're going to pick and choose what countries are going to get to come in. But I honestly, it sounded like they're not going to be expecting like international tourists as a collective coming back until the end of the year, like November, December timeframe.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, if I were in Thailand where they're handling it so well and there's such a
100% support it.
Well, along the Thailand and travel front, how are you feeling about traveling again, or at what point are you comfortable traveling, or what are you looking for?
I'm ready to go. I've been grounded since January and I'm going nuts. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start we're going to start doing vlogs on Saturday. I'm going to start back creating my video guide to Bangkok for expats. And I was planning to do more domestic travel, but they have these 14-day quarantines in place right now. Like if I want
even
domestic, if I want to go to Phuket right now, there's a 14-day quarantine. So I'm like, I'm not going to make that trip. So when that kind of loosens up, I'm going to do more travel here. I mean, I'm thinking end of August, beginning of September, I want to get to Europe. and just kind of see what happens. Guys, I can't stay here. I can't wait for everything to be safe. I'm gonna have to risk it. And for me, that's it. It's tough for me to answer because I'm nervous because there's so many countries, mainly the US and the UK, who are just idiotic about this whole thing, who are not. And I'm sorry if I offend anybody in the audience. It's just my perspective.
It's nothing they haven't heard from us already, so it's okay. Those people stopped watching like a month ago.
It's disgusting how it's being handled in the US and the UK when compared to the rest of the world. I don't care whose fault it is or who's funding, it's bad. So I don't even feel comfortable going to the US. I'm supposed to go speak at TravelCon in New Orleans in September. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know about that, guys. But Europe is the plan in August, September. Maybe a 2-month train trip. I love trains in Europe. 2-month train trip and then work my way back to Asia. I'm going to go to southern India. I had to cut my trip short because of coronavirus. I had to hurry up and get back to Thailand before the borders closed. I want to go back to Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and then go to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was my last new country I went to. That was country number 95. I was sick, and it was a week before the bombings happened. I actually was staying at Shangri-La Hotel, which got hit like the week after I left. So I want to go back to Sri Lanka and like show them some love and support, and do a little more time in Bali. I keep getting invited to Bali, but I haven't been to Bali since like 2014. So it's been about 6 years. So yeah, that's my travel plan through the end of the year. It was going to be South America, but South America is chaos, and I just don't want to get stuck down there. That's not a place to get stuck. And my mom is coming to Thailand for the first time. She was supposed to be here this year, but she couldn't travel. So she's coming for Songkran of next year, Thai New Year.
Nice.
Wow.
Her first time coming to Thailand.
Her first time out of the country.
That's going to be then quite an adjustment.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe we should talk, because if you don't have her ticket, like that would be a good use of your miles. We can fly your mom business class, make it nice.
It's already in the works. Like it was like, oh, I don't know if it's a long flight. Okay, I'll fly you business class. I'll go anywhere you want for business class, baby. I bet you will.
Yeah. All moms.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
That's
for sure.
Taking logistics and everything out of the equation, what are the top few countries on your list? Not in addition to the ones you're talking about, places you want to go back to that you haven't been to that like might have been complicated, but if you could just teleport there, you would right now.
All right. So Australia and New Zealand are going to be those two countries, but I think that's a generic answer. So I want to go, let's say, honestly, I want to check out Venezuela. I'm very curious about Venezuela. And let's go. And Madagascar. I've been like, I've met somebody from Madagascar, and she was one of the coolest people I ever met in my life. So I really want to go check out like what Madagascar actually is like. And she said it's as amazing as people think it is. And Mauritius. Oh man, yeah, that's a hard question. That's a hard question.
What was the animated movie that was supposed to be based with the animals in Madagascar? What is that?
Yeah, Madagascar.
Madagascar, and if you have small children in your life, like I have my nephew, Madagascar 2. So, they were up all night thinking of the name for that one.
I was on some airline where they only had like 16 movies, and somehow I ended up finally watching that at the.
I think they had the penguins from Madagascar got their own movie too. Yeah.
I didn't realize that was actually what it was called, but that, yeah. I guess that's how I knew it was based there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Madagascar was high on my list. We were going to go, but then they had the plague outbreak that year, and we were like, maybe not. Plague doesn't really sound like the thing.
That's a good way to go. I died from the plague in Madagascar. I would be okay with that tombstone. I got to be honest. Or generic ways to go.
Right, like you earned that. You earned that.
Died from the plague. That's a good ending to my book. I will take that.
Goodness. Okay, so since you're not doing in-person conferences and stuff like that this year, where can people find you? Because we haven't, like, we've talked about your stuff, but we haven't given you the chance to plug your stuff. So
YouTube, I'm Minority Nomad everywhere. YouTube, Instagram. I just bought a GoPro. I'm waiting for it to arrive, so I'm going to be doing a lot more like street photography. I don't think there's a good street photography course. Period. Nobody's doing it. So me and some friends, we're gonna get together and see if we can put something together for people. Because I think street photography is so hard. It's a very difficult form of photography because of the human barrier. And I think once we teach people how to get over that nervousness about approaching people that they don't know in a language and a place they don't know, once you get over that, it becomes very easy. It becomes simple. So I wanted to create a course where it teaches people how to be people again. I think we've forgotten how to be people. So we want to create like a street photography course that focuses on the human, the interpersonal connections between people, kind of like, Humans of New York for photography. You just have to learn, you have to stop being scared of rejection. You just have to embrace it, and get excited by it, and learn from it. So that's what I'm going to be doing. You're going to see that popping up on Minority Nomad here and there. Instagram is my favorite social media. I use it daily. It's the only one I actually use daily. So you can find me there. And different courses and stuff. I'm everywhere. I don't like plugging myself. I just like, it feels too formal to me. Like,
yeah, I know that's always, but it's a nice way to end things because I think like people have had questions that we've tried to answer, and it's gracious with your time. It's good for people to follow you.
Grant is upset. I'm sorry. Grant in the chat is mad. What's one of Grant's questions? Like, I don't want nobody to be upset at this.
So Grant was mad that we were talking about carbon footprints, and then he said travel insurance.
Oh, okay. What's the question? Yes, Grant.
He left, unfortunately. So I don't know if anybody else wants.
So I actually do. I'm a huge advocate for travel insurance. As a photographer, I tend to travel with very, very expensive gear. So I have two separate insurance plans. So I have I used to use World Nomads, and then I switched to Allianz when I was like an ambassador for them for about 3 years. And then that contract ended, and then I went back to World Nomads. And then I have a separate, just a photographer personal protection plan on all my gear and equipment. So I, at all times, have travel insurance on myself as well as my travel gear.
I love that. That was very good. That sounded like that was good branded content.
Unfortunately, I should learn from that because I guess we have some sort of credit card insurance, but it's not real insurance. So should probably do that.
I did actually, you do have a medical evacuation policy because I just bought it one day. Howie was like, you and Ben just both need to buy this. And I was like, okay. It was like $12. So I just bought it for both of us. I was like, this seems like it might come in handy.
I really honestly, like, it's one of the foundation, like the very foundational recommendations for me, because I really believe it's so inexpensive now that there's really no excuse to take the risk. I mean, it is like you get hurt in a foreign country without travel insurance. It could be bad. It could be really bad. I think it was Dave, Dave and Deb, the Planet D. Like when he broke his back, like if it wasn't for his travel insurance, that was millions. That was millions of dollars and evac fees and surgeries and all that stuff. So that was a perfect reminder of why you need to have travel insurance, at least basic travel insurance.
Yeah, I think the evac thing is.
Yeah, it's huge. You better bring in all the helicopters to get me out of the jungle. Helicopters, spare no expense.
Well, on that note.
Thank you so much for joining us, Eric. This has been very fun, and it's my bedtime here. It's 7:30.
Oh,
so
we're finished? Oh man!
Oh, just about. Just flew by. But 6:30. So hopefully you can get some sleep.
Yeah, this was so enjoyable. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for watching. we'll maybe see on Sunday. We're not. I'm not committed to Sunday brunch this week. I'm going to be real honest. So we've been twice a week. We've been doing Thursday happy hours and then Sunday brunches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like this is like the most sober happy hour I've ever been to.
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing is, we started off doing these in March because we were both like quarantined from international travel, and we were drinking because like we were home and we thought it was just going to be the 14 days. But then when we realized that it's actually until the end of time, you actually just can't have 3 cocktails a day and run a business. Turns out.
Agreed. Okay.
Who knew?
And I've also like double reversed. I'm now doing intermittent fasting, so I only eat from like 9 to 5. So to be perfectly honest, I may have had a couple of drinks.
You're a freak of nature, my friend. Like you people, you're like people who run for fun. Like you guys are.
I mean, I'm not moving otherwise. We work from home, so don't go anywhere.
10 years in the military of forced running. I'm like, I'm not running for fun.
But it got to the point where there were no drinks for like a month, but now I had a couple of drinks before this started so it's not completely unboozy. I'm just on the opposite sides of that, I guess.
Actually, I train jujitsu, and intermittent fasting is something I do when I'm training for a tournament. So I'm just picking with you, man. It's solid, man.
I'm not sold on it yet. I'm still giving it a try. We'll see. But, drinking a little bit earlier.
Recommendation is just do the fast until noon, like noon. If you wake up at 6 a.m. like me, fast until noon, and then just eat whatever you want until 9. It's not that hard. 9 hours a day.
How do you wait till noon if you're getting up at 6? Like I can handle the evenings without eating. It's the morning.
Ben gets cranky. Yeah, keep in mind, Ben is going from when I was packing for Romania for our road trip, I was like, okay, so Ben has to eat like 100 calories an hour to not be a complete dick, starting like within 5 minutes of waking up. Like, cause you were a snacker, right? Like, it's just like, that's how his metabolism works. Like he just sort of has to be constantly fueling.
So it's different now, but it works, we'll see.
You get used to it. You get used to it.
It's the mornings that's tough, though. Evenings, whatever, I can handle that. But anyway, thank you so much for joining, Erick. We appreciate it. And
thank you guys so much. Anytime. Thank you guys for reaching out to me when you hit me up. I was like, "Is that Tiffany? What? I've heard from you. Like, where has she been?" Like, I was like, "Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, for sure, I'll do it." So,
well, when I talk to guides also on Bangkok, because it has been a while since I've been there, and I would actually like to experience a different side than just the.
You guys come through Bangkok, I will show you a different side of the city. Any of your audience, anybody who's watching this, please feel free to reach out to me. I love Bangkok so much. I want people to see. I know so many people hate Bangkok because they come for 2 days and have a bad experience, but I want you to see all the majesty and just the brilliance of this amazing city. So feel free to reach out to me on any social media platform. I would love to help you guys just have a brilliant time. And, worst case scenario, I can guarantee you I can get you some really good food.
I love that. Thank you guys so much. This was awesome. Appreciate it.
All right.